PhD here doing my conclusion for Command & Conquer 4, Tiberian Twilight. I'm going to be doing this one a little differently than the others for two reasons. Number one, my camera's not working. I don't know why. Number two, you're going to notice that there's only an intro video. That's because this game is so freaking buggy and so unstable that it just crashes constantly. I think there's maybe 7 NOD chapters, 7 GDI chapters, and I got to, I would say, about the 5th or 6th GDI chapter with probably about 24 crashes under my belt. And so I thought, well, let's try the NOG campaign, see if it's any better. Nope. First time I tried it, crash about 3 minutes in. And it's not just a crash, it's a very, very degrading frame rate first, like single digits we're talking, and then the game crashes, but it's still running in the background somehow, so you have to go into Task Manager, close it, relaunch it, and I tried various fixes with it. I made sure that all the game files were up to date. I tried uninstalling it, reinstalling it, verifying the game cache, verifying the integrity of the files. I tried playing it at low resolution, high resolution. I tried playing it on low settings, high settings, save spamming. Save spamming was the only thing that got me through the GDI campaign to where I got it to. The game's just a freaking mess. It's unplayable. And so my conclusion for how bad is Command & Conquer 4 Tiberian Twilight? It's terrible. It's absolutely horrible. I can see why the series died here. And it's sad because Command & Conquer was one of my favorite series of all time. This installment was just utter garbage, and it makes me think, with these, they've always had cheesy live action sequences and all that, but the gameplay, it just makes me wonder if they were out of ideas. Maybe they got bored and EA kept pushing them to develop Command & Conquer, so they're like, screw it, let's just make one that's so bad that no one will want to play it and we'll be done with it. But then I read that Generals 2 was in development, and then they pulled that, and I'm thinking, well, Generals was my favorite Command & Conquer game of all time, so I'm glad they axed that because they probably would have pissed all over its grave. But in the gameplay here, if you've played Command & Conquer for as much as I did, you'd realize that Command & Conquer was all about, depending on how you played it, but you had bases, you build bases, then you send units to crush, the opposition under an unstoppable wave of enemies. There wasn't really anything that tactical about it. Anytime they tried to add tactical things to it, it just didn't really pan out in the face of the competition, like Company Heroes or StarCraft or Warcraft. But it was still fun to play. Command & Conquer was a very fun series. Here, they do away with all the base building, and they give you these things. 3 different types of crawlers that you call down. They all have different types of units. Like the offensive one, it gives you mainly your offensive tanks and all that stuff. The defense is where you can build some type of I would say base with turrets and all that, but it's completely underwhelming. And the support, mostly aircraft from what I've played in the GDI campaign. And let's call one of these pathetic, life-sucking things down. Here's another thing. I play Command & Conquer on consoles and PC. Usually on PC, since they didn't have the hardware limitations of consoles, I'm talking about Command & Conquer 3 and Red Alert 3, you had a population cap on console. On PC, you didn't, as far as I can remember. Here, I've never seen that population cap get above, I think it was 50 in the one mission for GDI later on. And some of the units take up 6 populations cap. So you're controlling maybe 6 or 7 units the whole time. And the series becomes less about sending waves of forces at your opponent to crush their defenses and just beat them all together. And it's just about preserving your forces, keeping the veterancy alive, because the veterancy in this game isn't gained through experience like the old games. The crates are left behind by dead enemies, and you have to pick them up, and that's what gives your units veterancy. It's stupid. Um, then I saw some things later on in the map that looked like drills that came out of the ground. They were just dropping crates, dropping crates, dropping crates. So I just sat by one of them the whole time and veteran seat up to all my units, and I thought, what's the point of even fighting the enemy here? You have to babysit your crawler, this damn thing, the whole time too. I mean, if it gets destroyed, you could call a new one down, but the way the missions are set up, there's just nothing really fun to play about this game. Even if it didn't have Command and Conquer in the title, I couldn't recommend this to anyone. It's such a freaking mess. I seriously, they had to have purposely sabotaged this because it's just that bad. Well, that was the introduction of my review. I'm going to get into the more nuanced part of it now. The graphics. On the technical aspect, the graphics are pretty good. You can see that here. I was able to play the intro video in 4K max settings. And everything looks alright, but something I really don't like here is if you went back and you play Command & Conquer 3, it has a very, I would say, distinct, almost realistic look to it. It hasn't aged that well, but at the time, that's what they were going for. This has more of a Red Alert 3, very cartoonish type look with these thick outlines on everything. I simply don't like the art direction. I think it looks like shit. And that's my personal opinion. So good technical graphics, bad artistic decisions. Controls. Typical RTX, there's nothing too complex here. I mean, you're not going to be seeing anything that you see in Company Heroes or StarCraft, anything like that. But, you know, it gets the job done, so I can't complain about the controls too much. They've modernized it a little bit as compared to the old CNC games. And I would hope so, because Red Alert 2 was pretty rough. Gameplay. Oh, Jesus Christ. You just babysit these units the whole time. That's pretty much it. It's just focus fire on one or two enemies. There's no big mass battles like there was in the old series where you would send, 30, 40 mammoth tanks to crush your opposition and they would be met with a bunch of avatars or whatever. It's just these small battles. It's so stupid and boring. Some of the different gameplay missions that they had you do had you defending certain areas, and while you only have a handful of units in such a small population cap, this became quite irritating. Switching back and forth between the crawlers to figure out which one would work. I just dropped the difficulty on that particular mission so I could get through it. But it's not very good. Now, something else I should point out here, because this would be with the gameplay section. If you look down here, you'll notice that there's only 2 units unlocked. As per most real-time strategy games, the further you get in the game, the more units you have unlocked. Here you have some sort of an EXP system where you have to level up in order to unlock those units. It's not like the old games where if you get the mission 6, you'll have access to a certain class of units or whatever. This is all dependent on how much EXP you get. And I thought that whole system was stupid. It was just flat out stupid. And since I would also feel this falls into the gameplay section, since you have to do it to get into the gameplay, you have to sign in to 2 different things to even make it into the damn game. You gotta sign into Origin, and then you gotta sign into, I guess the Command and Conquer servers themselves. I think it requires, no, it's the same password, but it's just a whole mess, and you have to do it every time too. It doesn't remember like a past login or anything. You have to do it every single time. So we'll get into the next aspect, sound. Nothing about the sound in this game particularly impressed me. Explosions and all that just sounded rather weak. The units, when they make their own callouts, when you click on them or whatever, it's just pretty dull and boring. Everything sounded drab. About the only good thing about the game was Kane. Kane's always a good actor within these games, and it's no different here, but that was about one of the only highlights. So next, music. The music is horrible. Even from the intro video on into the gameplay, the music's just absolutely forgettable, stupid, unoriginal, generic. I can't think of a single good thing to say about it. Story. I wouldn't know. I didn't get to finish it. Like I said, I got to maybe the fifth or sixth mission within GDI, and I didn't make it past the first mission with Nod. But from what I understand, the beloved Kane in this series gets a very, very horrible ending. At least that's what I've read and what I've heard. But I didn't get to experience myself just because the game's so buggy. And so after story, that comes onto where this game really falls apart. Stability and bugs. It's a freaking mess, as I said first off. It is horrible. I've had 3-4 dozen crashes on this. I've tried every single fix that I know of. It was completely updated by Origin, and it's still got some of the worst bugs I have ever seen in a game. And I've seen some buggy games like Fallout New Vegas on PlayStation 3, which was an absolute mess. But at least you could play it. You can't even play this pile of trash. It's horrible. In my opinions, I'll give you an opinion. This is my first terrible review I've ever done, and if you were offered a choice between playing this game and dying, you should probably pick dying. That's it. DHG out.